Hi, I'm Janne. I work at the Hawkes Tasting Room in downtown Sonoma, and I'm going to be showing you my favorite method for cooking a Thanksgiving turkey. This is sort of a two-part method. The first part involves brining the turkey before you roast it, and then the roasting is done at a high temperature for a much shorter period of time than you would normally cook a Thanksgiving turkey. The brine is something I've probably just developed over the years after looking at a lot of different brine recipes, and it's also pretty flexible. You could modify the brine any way you like. The roasting technique that I use is, I believe, a recipe that I found in a gourmet magazine about 7 or 8 years ago. And it's the recipe that I've used for the past 7 or 8 years just because it works so well. The brining produces a bird that has really juicy meat, and the roasting at a high temperature also helps it retain its moisture, and the brining also seasons the bird from the inside out rather than just relying on seasoning the skin heavily. It kind of works. The way I do a basic brine is to combine equal parts salt and sugar. So in this case I'm using a cup of sea salt and a cup of brown sugar. I'm using sea salt and I'm doing a cup. If you were to use kosher salt, I would recommend doing a little bit more, maybe just a heaping cup. And then I use brown sugar. You could certainly use regular sugar as well. I usually add just a couple of things to it. Peppercorns, some bay leaves, a type of herb. I'm using thyme, but you could certainly use rosemary as well. And I've done a million modifications on this brine. This is really just sort of the nuts and bolts of it. I've swapped out some of the water for apple juice or apple cider. I've added different kinds of herbs. You can add crushed garlic, citrus rind, really whatever you want. So you combine a little hot water with the salt, and then once the brine, or once the sugar and the salt dissolve a little bit in the brine, you can go ahead and just add cold water. It would eventually probably break down in cold water as well. I just like to give it a little head start. And basically you just want to add enough cold water so that once you submerge the bird, it's going to cover the bird. If you don't want to use a pot because you don't have enough real estate in the fridge, you can certainly use a brining bag, and those work pretty well, usually double bag, just because I have on occasion had one burst in the refrigerator and it makes a huge mess. So I'm just going to put the turkey in here, cover it with more water, cover the pot, and put it in the fridge. Ideally, you want to be able to brine it for about 24 hours. You can get away with 16, probably 12. I wouldn't really go under 12 hours for brining a bird. So after you've brined the turkey for 24 hours, you're going to take the bird out of the brine and out of the refrigerator an hour and a half before you want to start roasting it, just to give the meat a chance to come up to temperature a little bit. And then you're going to set your oven to 450 degrees and place the rack in the oven pretty low in the bottom third of the oven. Be sure before you season the bird to dry it out, so you can use either paper towels or kitchen towels, but you want to dry the skin off completely on the top, on the bottom, and then inside as well. And then I've already gone over this bird and pulled out any little feathers that I found. I think I got them all. You can do it pretty easily with just a pair of tweezers. So I'm going to position the bird breast side up. And then all I'm going to do to season the outside is add a little bit of salt and some ground pepper. You don't have to add too much because the brine did a lot of the work for you, but I always think skin with a little bit of salt and pepper tastes nice. Okay. So I will say that if you generally put your stuffing inside your bird to cook it, you would probably want to not brine your turkey, just because the brine is going to seep through or drip through the stuffing, and it's going to be overly salty. So if you're going to do a stuffing, I would definitely recommend doing it in a separate pan. I'm just going to stuff the bird with some nice aromatics. So I'm going to use just some apples and some orange. You could use really any kind of citrus, a little bit of onion, and some fresh herbs. I'm using thyme, but again, you could use rosemary or sage, whatever you like. garlic wouldn't hurt. And I'll also say that if you are going to use your pan drippings for gravy, I would definitely use a stock that has no sodium or salt in it. So if you're making your own stock, omit the salt. If you're using a store-bought stock for your gravy, find one that is without sodium, just because those pan drippings are going to be really salty. And give you a little better control over how much salt is in your bird or in your gravy. So then to truss the bird, I'm just going to take a little piece of string and tie the legs together. I've obviously already taken out the neck and the liver and all that fun stuff that comes in the bag inside the turkey when you first get it. And then the wings, you're just going to want to sort of bend and tuck underneath the bird like this, and that'll keep these little wings kind of nice and close to the rest of the body. And then there's usually this big flap of skin right here, and I just like to sort of tuck it under. And I'm going to add a cup of water to the roasting pan because you're going to be roasting it at a really high temperature, and you don't want the pan drippings to burn because you'll get a lot of smoke in your kitchen. We're going to put it in a 450-degree oven. All you're going to do is rotate the bird once while you're cooking it, about halfway through. You don't have to bother with doing any basting or anything like that because it's not going to be in the oven for that long. So that's 450 degrees. This is a 16-pound bird, so I'm going to keep it in there or start checking it at about 1 3/4, 2 hours. And it shouldn't really take any longer than 2.5. And the way I'm going to test it for doneness is to use an instant read thermometer and make sure it's at 170 degrees. I don't like to go above 170 degrees just because the bird's going to continue to cook a little bit once you take it out of the oven. So the temperature will come up to about 180, which is generally what is recommended for poultry. One of the funny things about Thanksgiving is that it's pretty much the only time that any of us ever cook an entire turkey during the entire year. So I don't know if these are things that I forgot from over the past year, or if something different happened in the oven, but we did end up having to put a little bit more water in the roasting pan to keep the juices from drying up and burning. So do keep an eye on the water in the pan and just make sure there's always a little bit so that you can still use those nice turkey juices afterwards for your gravy. And then the other thing is that the bird started to get a little bit dark towards the end of its cooking time, so I went ahead and loosely tented it with a piece of tin foil, which worked beautifully. I'm going to let it rest for about 30 minutes before we cut into it, and I'm not going to tent it. Just if you do want to tent it to retain a little bit of heat, do it very loosely so that not too much steam accumulates under the foil, so that the skin stays nice and crisp. So just a little note about food pairing with Thanksgiving. I am definitely going to be pouring a couple of bottles of our O2 Alexander Valley Cab with my Thanksgiving dinner. Just because, similar to Paula, who was talking about liking the way that the Merlot pairs with food just because it's a little bit leaner in style than some of the bigger, more robust Cabernets. I feel that way about this wine. This is the first vintage of wine that we made, and really to my palate it's just in its sweet spot right now. It's still got a nice amount of tannin, but they're beautiful, long, soft tannins, really delicate fruit. And it's just a little bit lighter in style, and that's kind of what I'm aiming for in terms of pairing with the bird, just because I think that it will complement it rather than sort of overwhelm the meat. The 07s are a new favorite of mine, and they're delicious, and I can't really imagine a better pairing for them than a great steak, but with something a little lighter like poultry, I definitely am going to be pouring something that I think complements it rather than overwhelms it.